Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. Got some new graphics up here so you can check out what we're talking about today, but I'll tell you anyway because you might be listening. You might not be watching. The AllStar Game was last night, and the Phillies' two All-Stars, they played an important role in the National League's win over the American League. We'll discuss the five most important Phillies in the second half of the season, and we're also just going to wrap up what's been an interesting couple of days up in Seattle. All of that on today's episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out. Locked On Phillies is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen to Locked On Phillies. Maybe you're watching Locked On Phillies on YouTube. If you're listening, like, rate, review wherever you consume your podcasts. And if you're viewing on YouTube, or if you haven't yet, check out the YouTube. And when you do, subscribe to Locked On Phillies. Helps me out significantly. Helps us out at Locked On as a whole when you subscribe to the YouTube. So if you enjoy the content and you want to know exactly when you can get more Locked On Phillies episodes, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube. It's simple. It's free. It takes like 2 seconds of your time. Really appreciate anyone who does that. Now, today's episode is post AllStar Game, but there's still a couple days until the Philadelphia Phillies are back in action. They don't play again until Friday evening when they'll take on the San Diego Padres down in South Philadelphia. They start at home on the back end of the All-Star break. So that's a good thing that they're able to go ahead and get that game home. But it's it'll be an interesting series. My point bringing that up is we have a partnership, of course, with Sirius XM. They play the games. You can listen to the Phillies hometown radio broadcast of those games on the Sirius XM app. Just go to the SXM app, search Phillies. No game tonight, no game tomorrow night. So I want to give them their deserved love at the beginning of the program. Just to let you know that for the entirety of the second half and every Phillies game, you can go to the Sirius XM app and go ahead and search Phillies and pull that all up. Now, let's jump into the action from Seattle last night because there was some action. The score doesn't really show that it was all that exciting. In the middle innings, I'll be honest, got a little bit boring there, especially for me being a Phillies fan, and your two guys being in the All-Star Game were a closer and a backup outfielder for the All-Star roster. I mean, obviously Nick Castellanos starts for the Philadelphia Phillies, but he was a backup on the team. So it's like, if they aren't scoring, the top guys, I'm not overly interested in those middle innings. So we'll go into that a little bit. And Nick Castellanos and Craig Kimbrell did end up playing a role in that one last night. But starting off the game, I mean, right from Jump Street, if you weren't interested in this game, they got you interested. Garrett Cole pitching for the American League, the National League up to bat. And two balls got absolutely stung. It was Ronald Acuna and Freddie Freeman, who went ahead, one former Brave and one current Brave, Freeman now with the Dodgers, who led off for the National League. And Acuna drove one to right field, and Adolis Garcia of the Texas Rangers went ahead and jumped up. Now, he probably didn't need to jump, but he made a great jumping catch. The ball was coming out of shadows because the shadows are kind of weird out there in Seattle during the early innings. He made a great catch to start the game. And then Freddie Freeman hit a ball that may have been gone, and Randy Arozarena went up and either robbed it or took it right off the top of the fence the very next batter. So the first two batters were absolute frozen ropes, and the American League made plays on both of them. Awesome plays that brought the stadium to their feet. It was such a cool way to start it on back-to-back at-bats like that, and I'm sure Garrett Cole was appreciative. But then everything settled down. I mean, there really wasn't too much scoring on this one. It was a 3-2 final score, so it's not like the scoring was really lit up. You had a home run in the, what was it? I'm trying to recap everything here. Oh, yeah, bottom of the second. You get a home run from Diaz for the American League. Another Diaz is going to play into this game a little bit later. But 1-0 AL, and then there's not scoring until the fourth. Now, if you need an RBI single in the National League this year, who do you call? It's Luis Ariz, who seems to get a hit every single time. He singled to right field, scoring J.D. Martinez to make it 1-1 in the fourth. Then Bo Bichette in the bottom of the sixth hit a sacrifice fly for the American League to make it 2-1 AL. And this is where the Philadelphia Phillies come in. And, another player who you might not be familiar with because he plays for the Rockies. But the Rockies sent catcher Elias Diaz, however, Elias or Elias? Elias Diaz to the AllStar Game. And he played a big role in this one, coming in as a backup catcher for the National League. Nick Castellanos, though, he walked in the top of the eighth with the National League down 2-1. And remember, the National League has lost 9 straight of these. The American League has won every game since, 2014? Like, that's crazy, but they just have. The National League just hasn't been able to beat them. And with the NL down 2-1, Nick Castellanos walks. He gets the second on a wild pitch. And then Elias Diaz homers to left field, making it 3-2. An awesome moment for the National League. Stadium goes crazy. He goes crazy. He ends up winning MVP because of it. Now, Castellanos was one of the runs that really helped the National League help win this game. There were only 5 runs in the game. One of them was a Philly, and it was the tying run. I guess you'll look at it that way, even though they scored on the same exact play. It's hard to even make heads or tails of this box score because there's so many people getting inserted in and taken out for people. But Nick Castellanos, he had a hit in the game. He had a run in the game. He had a walk in the game. He did have a strikeout in the game, so he ended up getting 2 at-bats listed. He had another one where he walked there. So nice day for him, walking a hit. Love that for Nick Castellanos. Batted 500 in the All-Star Game, where there are a lot of zeros on this box score, so that's a good sign. And then with the National League up 3-2, they got some outs in the bottom of the 8th and in the bottom of the 9th. Craig Kimbrell comes on, who, of course, has 14 saves for the Phillies in the first half of the year. And he shuts the door on the American League All-Stars, just like he's been doing all year for the Philadelphia Phillies. So great work by Craig Kimbrell. He gets the save, the first opportunity to get a save in 9 years because the National League hasn't won. So he went ahead and got that done. And the Phillies score the tying run and hold the save. Well, hold is a different stat, but get the save in the National League's win in the All-Star Game. So it was nice to see Castellanos and Kimbrell playing a major role in this one. Obviously, slightly bigger star in Diaz, who hit the home run to put the National League up, and he rightfully deserved MVP. But yes, you saw a little bit of why Nick Castellanos has been good for the Phillies this year and why Craig Kimbrell has been really good for the Phillies this year. And hopefully those guys will continue to do so in the second half of the season. That's going to be super important for the Philadelphia Phillies to continue what they're doing right now. But are they one of the most important Phillies? Are they one of the 5 most important Phillies? Well, coming up, I'm going to run through the 5 most important Philadelphia Phillies in the second half of the season. If the Phillies are going to continue the stretch that they got into in June and July, and if they're going to continue to make a playoff push and all that good stuff, I mean, we know what the goal is for the Philadelphia Phillies. The question is, who's going to be, or who are going to be, the big players that help them get to that goal? And coming up, I'm going to discuss who I think the top 5 guys are going to be. Some chalk, some outside of the box. Yeah, well, you're going to want to hear it. We'll talk about it coming up as we continue Locked On Phillies. First, though, I want to tell you about my friends over at Bird Dogs. I mean, there's so many great things to say about Bird Dogs. Coming up this weekend, I'm going to a bachelor party in Atlantic City. One of my buddies is getting married. It's going to be fun. We're going to be out in the sun all day. We're going to hit the beach. We're going to hit the beach club. We're going to hit the casinos. We're going to hit dinner. And you know what I can do? I can wear Bird Dogs to all of those because not only are they comfortable, they're stylish, they're flexible, they're versatile, they're awesome. They're like what Herman Boone in Remember the Titans wanted his defense to be. Was it Herman Boone or was it Ned Yost? I forget who exactly says the line, but the mobile, hostile, agile. Now, Bird Dogs aren't hostile, but they're the other two. They're mobile and agile, and they also look darn good and make you look darn good while you're wearing them. I would show you. See, that's the thing. This copy, I'll always look at it and say, show you wearing Bird Dogs on camera. I can't because literally I wear them the second they're cleaning out the laundry. Like, if you don't catch me the first day my Bird Dogs are cleaning out of the laundry, they're dirty again and going back in the laundry because they're my favorite pair of shorts that I own. You got to go ahead and check them out. They're absolutely cool. I mean, some of the things that are nice about Bird Dogs is they have these anti-stink, sweat-wicking fabric. It keeps you cool and smelling good all day. Also, the linings in them, you can get them with the linings in them. Some shorts, that can be restrictive. Some shorts, it can be too loose and not do the job that it's meant to kind of hold everything in place. Bird Dogs is a perfect combination. It's breathable. It's not too tight, but it's tight enough that everything's all good down there. It's great. I mean, you could not make a better pair of shorts if you tried, and you don't have to because Bird Dogs already did. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter promo code LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. I keep it in my car every day. I use it to drink at work in the morning every day, get water out of that Yeti tumbler. It's a quality item. Again, that's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or promo code LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We absolutely promise you. Okay, let's talk about the 5 most important Phillies in the second half. Now, there's no particular order to these guys outside of them being the top 5. I've just kind of put them down stream of consciousness that I've gone ahead and had them pop into my head. But I do think they're the 5 most important Phillies the rest of the way. And we're going to start with one of the most obvious ones, Bryce Harper. Now, Bryce Harper was really, really good coming back from injury. He's batting in the high 200s. He's creating opportunities on the base pass. He's running well. He's still athletic, all this good stuff. He did have a little bit of that elbow issue ahead of the All-Star break when he was hit by a pitch in that surgically repaired elbow down in Miami. Sounds like he's fine. Hopefully should see him ready to go when the Phillies take on the Padres this weekend. I'm not worried so much about the injury, but there are a couple reasons why Bryce Harper is super important. First of all, as soon as he's healthy and can play first base, you can take Kyle Schwarber out of left field. I don't know when that's going to be, but having Schwarber DH would create the best version of this Philadelphia Phillies team. That is a big reason why Bryce Harper is valuable and important. And another one is he hasn't really hit for power. He needs to start hitting the ball out of the ballpark. I'm not going to beg him to because he's been good. This isn't like Bryce Harper is only good when he hits home runs. The guy's just a great baseball player all around. But it would really make a difference to this team to be producing runs in that manner rather than RBI single, steal second base, someone else got to hit you in, you get 1 run. No, I'd rather just see you hit the ball out of the ballpark. So he's definitely one of the 5 most important Phillies in the second half. The next one, Aaron Nola. This is another one that goes without saying. Nola's been super inconsistent. He took the loss in the last game of the first half before we went into the All-Star break to the Miami Marlins. Gave up 3 home runs in the first 3 innings of that one. The home runs have been terrible this year for him. He's been inconsistent. He needs to be much better. He's one of the top pitchers talent-wise on this staff, but he hasn't been pitching like one consistently all year. And I do believe the Phillies are going to look to add at the trade deadline, but Nola's not going anywhere. They're not pulling him out of the rotation. They're not sending him down. They're not trading him. They're not cutting him. None of this stuff is happening. He's going to be a member of this rotation, and this team is either going to be helped by him down the stretch or there's going to be a big game where he bites them. He needs to be better. So he's definitely one of the 5 most important Phillies. That one is almost self-explanatory because if you've watched any Aaron Nola this year, you know consistency from him would make a huge difference, and inconsistency from him also makes a huge difference in the other direction. Next one after that, Kyle Schwarber. Schwarber is batting below 200. He isn't fielding it well, but he's hit 22 home runs. 22 home runs kind of starts to make up for all the other deficiencies, but not the same as it has been in past years. I mean, if you're hitting 220 and you're hitting all those home runs, that's awesome. If you're feeling it all right and you're hitting all those home runs, great. You're a valuable player. With those other 2 parts of his game lacking right now, the home runs either need to go way through the roof and he needs it mid-40s like he did last year, or he needs to pick up the average a little bit, play better defense, and I don't know if those things are realistic. So it may just be get Kyle Schwarber to the DH spot so that he doesn't have to field and he becomes a positive by just being a guy that can hit the ball out of the ballpark and doesn't hurt you defensively. Either way, he needs to have a much better second half. I know people are focused on Trey Turner, and he's going to be the next guy that I talk about, but people are focused on Trey Turner because of the big contract and everything like that. But Kyle Schwarber's been the worst regular player on this team in the first half. He needs to not be the worst player on this team. Plain and simple. So, yes, Kyle Schwarber absolutely needs to step it up. Trey Turner is the 4th of 5 that I'm going to talk about. Trey Turner is another very important Philly. He's one of the top 5 most important Phillies the rest of the way. I mean, I still think back to an interview we did at 97.5 The Fanatic where we talked to Tim Kirkjian. You saw him on the broadcast of the All-Star Game last night. Great baseball mind, baseball Hall of Fame writer. Knows everything there is to know about baseball. And he almost laughed us off when we asked him about Trey Turner's struggles and was very confident he'd still hit around 300. Well, if he's going to, he's going to basically need to go like 3 for 4 for the next month to even put himself in a position where he can do that. And that's 3 for 4 like every game. So we'll see if Trey Turner has that in him. Some people are still confident in him. I'm not confident in him overall because I think he just went through a bad stretch. And hey, maybe the All-Star break mentally he'll be able to regroup and get back after it in the second half. But if he doesn't and he continues to be like a 240, 250 hitter, his defense is solid but not exceptional. He doesn't really make up for it with power. I don't know. He's just a middling player on this team. And Trey Turner is not a middling player by no stretch of the imagination. He's just looked like one for the first half of the season. That could mean that he's poised for a really big second half and he ends up hitting his benchmarks and is the player when everything gets done, his baseball reference page says he's going to be at the end of the year. Or he falters, he turns into Nick Castellanos Part 2. He has a great year next year, but that doesn't help the Phillies in 2023. And they're having a tough time creating offense because Harper can't hit the ball out of the yard. Schwarber can't hit the ball at all. And Trey Turner is not hitting the ball like Trey Turner should. So that's why those guys are all important as Philadelphia Phillies. And I have room for one more, right? It's not a player, and it's not a coach or a manager or anything like that. The fifth most important Philadelphia Philly the rest of the way in the second half is Dave Dombrowski. This team has put him in position to be aggressive. That could mean trades. That could mean going ahead and moving around contracts to go ahead and get people later and anything like that. But the deadline is approaching. I mean, that could mean call-ups, anything. Dave Dombrowski has the right to be super aggressive to try and go win a championship for this team. They have shown that their ceiling is World Series. I know that sounds crazy that they're currently out of a wild card spot and you're saying ceiling's World Series, but we know how talented this team can be. And we know the month of June, they handled just about everybody, including sweeping the Tampa Bay Rays. That shows how good of a team they can be. Now, additions to this team are going to make them what they can be. So you want to go ahead and be aggressive and add guys. There's a couple different moves that are on the table. First off, the trade deadline. I want to see them add a starter to go ahead and put in that fifth spot in the rotation so Christopher Sanchez is not the guy you're totally relying on down the stretch. I want to see them add another bullpen piece because you could never add too many bullpen pieces, and wouldn't mind Dylan Covey not being on the Major League roster anymore. Also, Jose Alvarado currently on the 15-day injured list. We don't know when he's going to be back and available, so you got to keep an eye on that as well. It's his second time on the injured list this year, so go ahead and add someone to the bullpen. And then add a bat, whether it's a first baseman, whether it's someone to play left field that can hit a little bit more than we think Christian Pache is going to be able to. Maybe it's a third baseman so that Alec Boehm could shift over to first. I don't even know. There's a lot of options, though, to go add a bat out there. And let me talk about one of the big options, too, that kind of popped up. Nolan Arenado. There were rumors swirling about him during All-Star Week because he was out there in Seattle. He might be getting moved by the Cardinals. And there's some belief out there that he may already be being shopped by the Cardinals to other teams, and the Phillies might have some interest. I don't know. These are all just like rumor mill things swirling that there are breadcrumbs here, there, and the other place. Do I think the Phillies are trading for Nolan Arenado? Likely not. Do I think they're interested in trading for Nolan Arenado? Absolutely, because who wouldn't be? What you'd have to give up would be enormous, but that could be a big trade. And like I said, Dave Dombrowski, he has the right to be aggressive considering how this team played over the last month and a half. What the players on the field do is important. But you think to last year and Noah Syndergaard and David Robertson and Brandon Marsh and what they brought to this team and how they helped on a World Series run, that was those players, but Dave Dombrowski was the reason that they were here. He needs to have an even better trade deadline this year than he did last year and give the Phillies a chance to go ahead and make another run. So those are my 5 most important Phillies in the second half of the season. And, yeah, they all need to step up or continue to step up in some of their cases, and the Phillies will be just fine. Coming up, we're going to wrap up with just a little bit of some housekeeping items and tell you what we have coming up the rest of the week on Locked On Phillies as we get ready to head back into the season and off of the All-Star break. We'll discuss as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. All right, first, though, I want to tell you about my friends over at BetterHelp, okay? Listen, there's tough times in life. Work can get you stressed out. Play can get you stressed out if you're a baseball player or something like that. Now, I doubt baseball players are, well, maybe they are. If you're listening to this podcast and you're a professional baseball player, especially we know the type of issues that minor leaguers have dealt with in the past and continue to deal with as far as money and everything like that. Every day. It doesn't matter how easy your job might seem to others or how easy your life might seem to others. Everyone's got something that they can work on as far as their mental health. And a lot of people need help doing that. And sometimes in life, when we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear, we need someone to help us draw a map, not to drag us along by a leash, but to show us the way to go and allow us to figure it out ourselves. Well, whether you're dealing with decisions around your career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values, it's like anything else, like hitting a baseball, it's like hitting the strike zone, anything else in life. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. Therapy is super important. And we know in today's day and age how many people in high profile positions that you seem to think, oh, your life would be perfect, talk about the benefits of therapy, even if life's going well. And if life's going hard, it's that much more important as well. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. Makes it super easy. You don't have to go wait in a weird waiting room and anything like that. You can do it just from your computer, just like you're watching Locked On Phillies right now. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if they don't do a good job of matching you, which they do, by the way, they take everything into account to match you. But let's just say for whatever reason, there's no chemistry there. You don't click. Well, you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today, and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. All right, let's wrap up with just a little bit of look at the rest of the week. Now, coming up tomorrow, we're going to jump into a discussion a little bit further about the second half, and I'm going to run through the contender and pretender list in the National League. We're going to look at the other teams in the National League that the Phillies are going to have to chase down and some that are chasing them. And we're going to say, well, I'm going to say, whether or not I think they're a contender or a pretender when it comes to the playoff push that's coming. We're going to identify just some names to keep an eye on. Like I mentioned, Nolan Arenado today. We're going to just throw out some names about the trade deadline. And we're also going to look at expectations for the rest of July. I know I kind of did that already, but we're going to take a deeper dive into that, focusing on just this 4-game series coming up against the San Diego Padres that starts on Friday. We'll do a deeper dive on that in earnest on Friday's episode, but tomorrow we'll just give an overview of who the Padres are and what's going so wrong with them this year to be in a position where they're not a playoff team either. So all of that, it's going to be a fun episode, fun rest of the week here on Locked On Phillies. Got the cool new graphics, got everything squared away with the All-Star break. The All-Star break's great for me too, not just for the players. So it's nice to have everything, all my ducks back in a row, makes it a better listening and viewing experience for you here on Locked On Phillies. So thank you so much for taking that viewing or listening experience and checking us out. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything all set up for tomorrow's episode, but good to talk to you. Appreciate you tuning in. Oh, make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing, all that good stuff. And I'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.